Hello, my name is Cassandra Perry, and today we're going to talk about brick and masonry. So here I have outlined what we're going to discuss. We have the terms to know, measuring, advantages, disadvantages, how to install it, the maintenance, pricing, major suppliers, differences in quality, varieties of product, environmental, sustainability, and LEED, and then the fire codes. So we have a lot to get through, so let's just get started. Okay. Terms to know. There are a lot, but we have lots of images, so it'll be quick and easy and fun and good to understand. Okay, here we go. Absorption is the adhesion of atoms, ions, biomolecules, or molecules of gas, liquid, or dissolved solid surface. Adobe brick is a natural building material made from sand, clay, water, and some kind of fibrous or organic material, which the builders shape into bricks using frames and dry in the sun. And here we have an image of Adobe brick for all those who would like to look. Okay, then we have aggregate, which is a broad category of coarse particulate material used in the construction, including sand, gravel, crushed stone, and slag, recycled concrete, and geosynthetic aggregates. An aggregate is put into the brick to help shape it and help it keep its form. Okay, bearing plate is used to transfer concentrated compressive forces between two structural elements. So for example, when a beam or column is supported by concrete or masonry, or when a beam supports a large concentrated load from a supported element, such as a column. A bearing wall is a wall that bears a load resting upon it by conducting its weight to a foundation structure. Then we have bond, which is a pattern in which brick is laid, and there are many different types of bonds, and they'll be discussed later. And then we have brick, which is a block of ceramic material used in masonry construction, usually laid using mortar. And then building brick is the same as brick, it's just used for building. Okay, terms to know. Continued. Okay, clinker. Partially vitrified brick stones. And vitrified is another word that we'll discuss later. A course, which is a continuous horizontal layer of similarly sized building material, 1 unit high, usually a wall. So in this image you can see that the course is the bottom row of bricks laid horizontally. And then you can also see what a wythe is, and that's another term that we'll learn later on too. And it's just the vertical of the brick. Okay. Face brick is brick with aesthetic quality used on the exposed surface of a building wall or other structure. So it's the part of the brick that you see that looks pretty. The header is a brick laid such that the small end only appears on the face of the wall. So in the image here below you can see the header is the small part of the brick going that way. Okay, and then there's a bunch of other terms there, and we'll discuss those all later too. There's the stretcher, the soldier, the sailor, the shiner, and the rowlock. Okay, paver brick is installed in the ground to create a driveway, pool deck, or walkway, and they can be put in different patterns and styles to create different effects. And this is just an example of one, so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, pointing is repairing mortar joints between bricks or other masonry elements. Rebar is a common steel bar and is commonly used as a tension device in reinforced concrete or masonry structures, holding the concrete in compression. Rowlock is a brick laid on the edge of its face, and that's one of the terms that was discussed up in header. You can see that picture up there. Then there's running bond, and this is a pattern with each course made entirely of stretchers. So it's all just the long horizontal part of the brick. Okay, common bond is a variation of running bond with a course of full-length headers at regular intervals. So in this image you can see about the 5th row up there are the little squares of brick, and those are the headers, and then you go up another 4 or 5 rows and you see another row, and that is a common bond. Okay, and then there's stack bond, and the stack bond has each course made of the stretcher stacked right on top of the one below. So it creates, the mortar creates a straight line. A sailor is a brick laid vertically with the narrow side exposed. A shiner is a brick laid on the long narrow side with the broad side exposed. And a soldier is a brick laid vertically with the narrow side exposed. And all of those can be seen in that image above too, in header. And then stretcher as well, which is a brick laid horizontally, flat, with the long side of the brick exposed on the outer face of the wall. Okay, then we have a struct joint. So a mortar joint in brickwork formed by pressing the trowel in at the lower edge so that a recess is formed at the bottom of the joint, suitable only for interior work. So here's the image of struct, so you can see the mortar just goes in at the bottom. A rake joint is a mortar or masonry joint from which the mortar has been scraped out to about 3/4 of an inch. And here you can see that picture. Then we have tooling, which is work on ornamentation done with tools. A trowel, which is the tool used in brickwork and stonework for leveling, spreading, and shaping mortar or concrete. And it kind of looks like a cake slicer, but it's used for a brick instead. Okay, so then we have a weather joint, which is when mortar is recessed increasingly from the bottom to the top of the joint, with the top end not receding more than 3/8 of an inch into the wall. So this one is the opposite of the struct joint that we talked about earlier. Okay, last slide with terms to know. The withe is a continuous vertical section of masonry, 1 unit in thickness, and that was up with the image of course. And then we have vitrification, which is a glazing over brick to render it impervious to water and highly resistant to corrosion. And then we have a V-joint, which is an angular hollow mortar joint. And below you can see what that looks like. And it looks just like what it's called. It is a V. Okay, now we're going to move on to measuring bricks. So the standard brick is 8 inches long and 2.5 inches tall, and the standard mortar is 1/2 inch thick. So I'm just going to run through an example really quickly of how you would figure out how many bricks you need for the size wall that you have. So here we go. So we're going to do a wall that's 10 feet by 10 feet, and we need to convert it to inches so that it goes with the bricks, because the bricks are in inches. So we have 120 inches by 120 inches. Okay. Then we're going to take 120 and add 9 and get 129. And the reason why we did that was because for the length, which is what we're doing now, you need to have a 4.5 inch overhang on each side. Okay. Then we're going to do 129 divided by 8.5, which is the 8 inches plus the 1/2 inch mortar. And you'll get a little over 15. I rounded to 16. Okay, so 16 is the number of bricks for 1 row length for a 10-foot wall. Okay, now we have 120, and we're going to divide that by 2 3/4 actually. I forgot to add in the 1/2 inch when I was creating this page, but the answer is correct. It is 44. So then you have 44 bricks that you need for the width, and that gives you the length and the width, and then you multiply those together and you get 704 bricks, and that is how many bricks you need for your 10 by 10 wall. Okay, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so there are a lot more advantages than disadvantages to brick, which is really great. Okay, so the use of the material, such as brick and stone, can increase a thermal mass of a building. So it has really good heat retention. It doesn't let a lot of the heat out in the winter time. Brick typically isn't going to be painted, so it provides a structure with reduced life cycle costs, so you don't have to paint it every year, and it's cheaper to maintain. Masonry is very heat resistant and thus provides good fire protection. Because it's created with high heat, it's able to resist the fire. Masonry walls are more resistant to projectiles such as debris from hurricanes or tornadoes. And then masonry structures built in compression, preferably with lime mortar, can have a useful life of more than 500 years as compared to 30 to 100 for structures of steel or reinforced concrete. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the disadvantages. So, extreme weather causes degradation of masonry wall surfaces due to frost damage. One of the bad things about brick is that it doesn't have very good frost to dethaw. It doesn't do well with that. So this type of damage is common with certain types of brick, so it can be avoided. So it's rare with concrete blocks. And then masonry tends to be heavy and must be built upon a strong foundation, such as reinforced concrete, to avoid settling and cracking. So when you're building a structure that is made of brick, you may have to add in initial costs for the foundation as well.